Hello children, today I am going to do the second part of chapter 1. In the first part we talked about the reproductive system, the transport system in plants, and we came to know that the roots are the part of the plant which actually helps the plant to absorb water. So this is the part of the plant which is there in the soil and it absorbs water and minerals from the soil. So to start with, we'll do an experiment to prove that roots absorb water. So for this I have taken 4 test tubes, test tube A, B, C and D. In the first test tube I put water and on top of it I have added a drop of oil. Fine. In test tube B I have taken uprooted a plant along with its roots and placed it and seen to it that the roots dip in the water. Okay, roots are dipped in the water. In test tube C, I have taken a plant, uprooted and seen to it the root is dipped in water and I have added a little bit of color to it. Okay, now in test tube D, I have taken I've taken water less in amount, okay, and so that the roots do not reach the water. I made sure the roots are not in contact with the water. In all these 3 test tubes, I've added a drop of oil to it. Okay. Now what do we see after some time? The level of water in test tube A remains the same. The level of water in test tube B decreases, it lowers. In test tube C also the level of water lowers. In test tube D again there is no change in the level of water. Why does it happen? It is because in test tube A, as you see, there is no plant there, and on top of that I have added oil so that even the surface water cannot evaporate because of the oil. In test tube B, I have placed a plant. Now the plant, what happens? The roots are actually absorbing the water, because of which the water level is lowering. And as because I have already added oil on it, so therefore what happens? There are no chances of the water escaping by the process of evaporation. So here, due to the absorption of water by the roots, the water level goes down in test tube B. In test tube C, what we note is the colored water that we have placed the plant in, that color is seen among the veins. Okay, if you see by your eyes, you will find little yellowish tinge in the leaves. Okay, so this is because the water is being absorbed by the roots, pass through the stem up to the leaves and it spreads in the veins. So the veins gets the color of the water. Okay, and the level of water also is lowered because some amount of water has been absorbed by the roots. In test tube D, what we find is the plant withers after some time. It droops, the leaves droop. Why? As because the roots are not touching the water, the plant does not, the leaf does not get the water. Okay, so by this experiment what we can say, conclude that roots absorb water. So now we know that roots are the part of the plant which absorbs water. Now what happens after that? Okay, so the root, after it absorbs water, it sends it to the minerals and the water to the leaves. There the food is being produced with the help of, by the process of photosynthesis, okay, with the help of chlorophyll in the leaves, trapping the sunlight. In photosynthesis, the products formed is the glucose, that is the food of the plant, and oxygen is being produced. The oxygen is given out through the small holes on the undersurface of the leaf called stomata, and the glucose which is produced is then transported or conducted to other parts of the plant. So the glucose is is sent to other parts of the plant, produced during photosynthesis in the form of an insoluble form, in the form of sucrose. Okay, so the glucose is transported through the stem with the help of phloem, okay, to all the parts of the plant in the form of sucrose solution. This process is called translocation of food. This is called translocation of food. Now that we know that roots absorb water, so let's discuss or revise the structure of the root. So what do we see in a root system? We see the main root, a primary root, from which branches come out, which is called secondary root. There may be further branches called tertiary root, but all over the roots, all the roots are then covered by small roots called root hairs. Okay, so the whole root system is covered by very small roots called root hairs. Now this root hairs help the plant to absorb water and minerals. There are specialities in this root hair which helps it to helps the plants to absorb water with the help of root hairs. The specialities of root hairs we'll discuss now. The first is surface area. So as because the root hairs are small and it covers the whole root system, so therefore what is it doing? It is increasing the surface area of the root to help it absorb more water in less time. Okay, now cell sap concentration. Now what is cell sap? Cell sap is the liquid present in the cell. Okay, the liquid that is present inside the root hairs has more amount of salts than the water that is present in the soil. So because the concentration of minerals or solute is more in the root hairs, therefore by a process we'll discuss later, the water gushes into the root hair. So the concentration of the cell sap is a very major factor that helps the root hair to absorb water from the soil. Okay, next comes the cell wall and the cell membrane, their nature. Now if you remember, when we read about the plant cell, what did we study? There are two membranes, outer layers, that is the cell wall and the cell membrane in a plant cell, out of which the cell wall is the outermost, and it is a permeable membrane which can easily allow any size of particles to enter or leave the cell. So cell wall is a permeable membrane, whereas the cell membrane is a selectively permeable membrane or semi-permeable membrane. Why? Because it allows only some particles to enter or leave the cell. So because of this cell membrane and cell wall, there are processes due to which or with the help of which water and minerals can enter the root hairs. So these are the specialities of root hairs, due to which root hairs are very, very important for the plant. So let us draw the root hair now. So as we discussed about the structure of root hair, so let's study the structure. So root hair is a typical plant cell. Okay, so it is the protuberance, it is the extension of the epidermal cell of the root. Okay, so it is the protuberance of epidermal cells of a root. Fine. Now it has the outer layer cell wall and the inner layer cell membrane. Inside it has the jelly-like cytoplasm and the nucleus. Okay, it is the epidermal cells of the root. Now we know that roots absorb water. It has root hairs which helps it to absorb water. Now let us study what are the processes by which this water and minerals are absorbed by the roots. Okay, with the help of root hairs. Basically there are two processes, that is the passive transport and now there is active transport. What is the meaning of active? Active means with a lot of energy, isn't it? Passive, a little low. Similarly, here also the main difference lies that here the movement of molecules happens without using energy. Movement of molecules without using energy. And here just the opposite, active transport. Movement of molecules using energy. Fine. So why is it so that here no energy is required but here energy is required? So under this passive transport there are two main types of processes. One is osmosis, the other is diffusion. Osmosis and diffusion. Okay, now by these two processes what happens? The plant absorbs the water. Now osmosis is a process by which there is movement of solvent molecules or the water molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. So let me explain this. What is it? It is that for example, if you take the plant, the water outside in the soil is much more than the water inside the plant. So what happens? The concentration of water with regard to water molecules, we see that the amount of water molecules in the soil is much more than water molecules inside the plant. So therefore the molecules of water automatically without any energy moves from the region of higher concentration, that is from the soil, into the roots. Okay, so and which is the semi-permeable membrane, the cell membrane. So separated by a semi-permeable membrane, that is cell membrane. So this is the process of osmosis by which water is absorbed by the plants. Now diffusion is a process by which the movement of, it may be a solid, a gas or a liquid, can take place through any kind of membrane, but always from a higher concentration to a lower concentration, just as in osmosis. The only difference is that here the two solutions are either in direct contact or separated by any kind of membrane. And here in osmosis, the solutions are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. So by diffusion also the water enters the plants with the dissolved minerals through the cell wall. Okay, so these two processes help the plant to absorb water as well as minerals, but without using energy. Why? Because the movement of molecules is taking place from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. But in active transport, what happens? If we talk about the minerals inside the cell sap, as we discussed in detail, is much more compared to if you take the amount of cell sap, the liquid inside the root hairs. In that little liquid only there is a lot of solute dissolving. But if you take the water outside in the soil, a huge amount of water, and if you compare it with the minerals in the soil, it will be much less in ratio. So the concentration of minerals inside the cell sap is much more than the concentration of minerals in the soil. So therefore, how does the mineral enter the plant? It is by using energy. Why? The minerals are moving from a region of low concentration, that is soil, to a region of high concentration, that is inside the roots. So therefore, it needs energy. So such process is called active transport. We will understand this by experiment. Now let us learn the process of diffusion and osmosis by some experiments. So here I have taken some water and I am adding some food color to it. So after I stir it for some time, what do we see? That the food color has uniformly dissolved in the water. So it has diffused between the particles of water, molecules of water, and formed an uniform solution. Okay, so right from the top to bottom you find a uniform color solution. So this is showing the process of diffusion. So now I'm coming to another process that we study, that is osmosis. So for this, carefully observe this diagram. Okay, the bigger dots that you see represents sugar molecules. The smaller dots represents water molecules. Okay, here inside A, I have taken a sugar solution, and in B there is only water, separated by a semi-permeable membrane. So this is a semi-permeable membrane that separates solution A, that is a sugar solution, to simple water. Okay, so when we leave this for some time, then what happens? We see that there is a movement. The water molecules that were present in side A gradually increases. The amount of the solution naturally also increases because of this, and the amount of water decreases. So gradually what we see, that side B, thus that is liquid taken, movement of decreases in amount from, and this increases higher concentration. Why? To a lower, it is because the water molecules through which when either in direct contact through this through semi-permeable membrane move from a concentration of higher concentration region to a concentration of lower concentration with regards to water. So as because water was at high concentration this side, water was at a lower concentration on side A, so there we see the water molecules move from side B to side A till the concentration of water on both sides are equal. Okay, this is osmosis, the process of movement of solvent molecules or water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. So by these processes, osmosis and diffusion. The roots absorb active transport is used. It helps the plant to absorb minerals which are required, some minerals in a large amount. Okay, that is called macronutrient, like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. These are required in a large amount, and some minerals are required in very small amounts, which are called micronutrients. Now these nutrients or minerals are present in the soil in the form of different compounds. Now these compounds are taken in by the root hairs with the help of active transport. Now why does it happen, active transport? As you remember, if you remember, active transport occurs using energy because there is movement of molecules against the gradient. That is, the movement of molecules occurs some minerals from a region of absorbed lower concentration. Now one I have shown you the sample higher concentration. Osmosis, and another you can do on your own. That is, if we consider the root hairs, then what happens? The cell sap just simple has a higher concentration of and minerals or solute compared to the go through soil activity of osmoscope. Okay, so now what happens because of the requirement of the plant? It needs the minerals, so therein it pulls the minerals from the soil. Okay, now this to take the minerals from the soil, and the soil has minerals in lower concentration compared to the plant, the root hairs. Therefore, it requires energy. Now, how does the plant get energy? It uses the ATP, the adenosine triphosphate energy molecules, which are produced during respiration to pull the minerals from the soil from the lower concentration to a higher concentration using energy, that is active transport. Now, as you see, the root hairs absorb the water and minerals with the help of the processes osmosis, diffusion, and active transport. Now, after these water and minerals are absorbed, the next step is the movement of water through the cortex cells of the root. Okay, the root hairs, the epidermal protuberance of the epidermal cells absorbs the water and minerals, then sends it to the next layer of cells present in the root, that is the cortex cells. Now, inside the cortex cells, this water moves by the process of cell to cell osmosis. That is, the water from the higher concentration moves to the lower concentration, that is the next cell, through the semi-permeable membrane, that is osmosis, till it reaches the xylem. Okay, so once it reaches the xylem vessels, that is the central part of the root. Now comes the third step, that is the conduction of water, which is also called ascent of sap from the roots to the leaves. So this upward movement of water and minerals through the stem up to the leaves is called the ascent of sap. The water that is absorbed by the root is also called the sap. Why? Because it has water, along with it, it has dissolved minerals in it. Okay, so once the sap reaches the xylem vessels, it starts moving upwards through the xylem vessels from the roots to the leaves. Now, the ascent of sap, that the upward movement of the water through these xylem vessels, can be done by this simple experiment by taking some white flowers, for example petunia, and you put it in a beaker or a flask. in water. Now in that water we add a little bit of color. Okay, you may use ink or some other food color. Okay, and leave it for some time. Now what we see is that the gradually the flowers that you see white now gains the color that you have added to the water. Okay, so why, how come the what color has reached the flower? I have just kept it, so after a few hours you'll also see the flowers changing its color. I show you the difference. Okay, so what has happened actually, what is the conclusion? It shows the ascent of sap through the xylem vessels or the vascular bundles. Okay, now we can observe the colors change in the flower coming in gradually. You can see the yellowish tinge that has come, isn't it? Now you can see